Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin. I'm joined as always by Scott, and Scott has been playing his best Frodo Baggins this week because he's done nothing but join a fellowship.
I still did 8 dungeons in World of Warcraft, which is more than I can say for you, sir.
That is true. I think I only did like 2,
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. So get off my back, man. You're the one playing ancient games from a previous age.
Hey, man, I finished out my RuneScape journey today. It's like a bingo board, and I filled it out today.
What?
So,
You're done?
get off my back. Yeah.
Didn't it just start?
The game mode ends the 12th of November, I think.
Jesus.
So it only runs for a month.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Like... Fuck you.
No, fuck me. You're the one that destroyed a game mode in a week.
Hey, man. You see, it's one of those games that you can play being a father because it takes like minimal attention. So I just like click something and let it go, and we're good to go.
Sounds great. Sounds like so much fun. I'm definitely going to try this out.
You should. It's a good game.
I won't. I will not.
All right. Well, we've got a podcast to go over, Scott. I don't know if you knew this. So.
No, I did not. Shit.
Hi. Anyways, we have honestly, like, there's a lot going on with WoW right now, and there's a lot of like news and stuff coming out, but it's a lot of like rehashing shit that's already been said. So I can't imagine that we're going to have a ton to really cover this week. So apologies in advance if it's a little bit of a shorter episode.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, here's my thing is like what's happening right now is new phases of alpha are coming out every week, and we are not in the alpha. And so we could relay the things that we're learning from alpha from the people that are in alpha. But I feel like, I don't know if that's what people come to us for. So I don't see the point in doing that. If you want to figure out how alpha is going, listen to someone who's in the alpha. We can't really do that for you.
Unfortunately. Yeah. We didn't really make a hit on that 58,000 subs or whatever we needed.
Hey, we got a few more. So, just baby steps.
I will say to everybody who subbed last week, and answered the call to arms, we appreciate you.
And to everyone who didn't, you're dead to me.
Or just do it this week.
Oh. Yeah, that one.
But so what's going on with the game right now, Scott? Turbo Boost released today as of our recording on Tuesday, which is not a day we normally record, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So Turbo Boost released. Scott and I's feelings on that one. Maybe we'll cover that just a little bit when we get started here. There were some crest changes that were data mined that were absolutely fucking atrocious. So that's something that we need to chat about too.
It's dramatic.
And the last thing that I think we need to at least talk about is Fellowship. We've covered it before. We've talked about the alpha. We've talked about multiple alphas now. But now it's fully in open beta, early access. I guess, do you call it open beta if you have to buy into it?
I don't think that's beta anymore. No, that's just early access, which is like it's a post beta that you have to pay $25 to be a member of. So that's, yeah, I don't know how I feel about early access as a concept, but hey, I'm getting to play this game about 6 months before it's going to be ready. So I guess that's cool.
6 months.
Yeah, we'll see.
6 months in software development's like 5 years.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, so those are like the 3 main things that I want to cover. There might be some shit that pops up while we're chatting through other things that Scott and I go off on a tangent about, because that's kind of how we do. So I think, Scott, we need to start with WoW. Obviously, people come here to listen to us talk about WoW.
It's because we're a WoW podcast. Yeah.
So first things first, Turbo Boost released fully today, which means we now have access to uncapped crests. We now have access to dinars. We now have access to the ability to drop catalyst charges. I believe that came in today as well.
Yes. It's everything that is in Turbo Boost except for the new tracks on the Hero and Mythic piece, because those came 2 weeks ago for some reason.
Mm-hmm. That being said, that's what came out today. We've covered it a bunch. I don't think that like here's my guess. Here's what I think is going to happen because what they did here. They released Turbo Boost 2 weeks ago and missed their opportunity to really snatch back the player base because now they released Turbo Boost a few days after Fellowship went into early access. And I think that the people who were pretty well done with the season are moving on to Fellowship and just playing that now. And they're not really coming back for Turbo Boost. So
I am really curious what the numbers are going to ultimately end up looking like, because obviously, yeah, like if you are a Twitch watcher, you have watched where the past week since Thursday, all the WoW content creators have been playing the shit out of Fellowship, basically nonstop. So I am wondering what, like, for the average player base, the non-content creator player base, like, how many people are going to fall into the Turbo Boost grind? Because there is, like, right now, like, you could be doing infinite Mythic Plus dungeons to cap all your, or to get as many crests and cap all your gear and be done with gearing. I'm going to be doing that. I don't know when I'm going to be doing that, but I'll eventually be doing that. But yeah, I want to see what the numbers end up here, because I agree with you. It feels a little weird. And of course that combined with a lot of people are just playing Remix, which I have not touched, honestly, since we recorded last week. I said I was switching to tank. I did switch to tank, and I haven't touched it since. But I know people that are absolutely, like, mercilessly grinding at that game. Like, people that they've timed keys over level of over plus 100. There's people that have 999% versatility. Just crazy stuff. But that's Remix for you. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what the numbers actually look like here.
I'm interested to see if they think that this was I personally believe that this was probably a catastrophic blunder on their part. Like, they knew when Fellowship was releasing, and I don't know if their goal was like, we're the better game and we're just going to steal people back from Fellowship when it releases, but it feels like that was just a miscalculation entirely.
It's possible. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the numbers of Fellowship look like either. I obviously, like, we're seeing a lot of people play it, but that doesn't, I'm worried of over analyzing those numbers and jumping to conclusions based off of just the anecdotal things we're seeing and saying, like, everyone's playing Fellowship right now. Obviously a lot of people we know are, and a lot of the content creators are, and we could perhaps extrapolate that out to capture a larger portion of at least the Mythic Plus population. And of course we also know that the game is attracting people from people that don't play WoW as well. But yeah, I mean, I do think that what they did with Turbo Boost, when we said it originally, was an attempt to stretch out the big massive return bump that they saw when they did it first in season 2. We talked about that there was a massive bump in the number of Mythic Plus dungeons done as soon as Turbo Boost launched in season 2. This felt like a pretty obvious attempt to just take that bump and just stretch it out a little bit, keep that bump going. And I don't think that worked. But I haven't seen any numbers. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that I did want to say is I have read quite a few posts and comments around Fellowship, and from WoW veterans who are very much so on both sides of this game. There are people who absolutely love Mythic Plus who do not like Fellowship. So yeah, I mean, you could be 100% correct in saying that maybe I'm going a little too overboard here, over analyzing all the streamers and everything. So that's completely fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's the new hotness for sure. One thing I'm really interested in Fellowship is how much staying power it has. Obviously, like, we're seeing things like streamers like JB and his team are on, like, endless 20s now. I don't know how, like, obviously endless says endless, or is it endless or eternal? I don't know which.
Eternal.
The point is it's supposed to go on for scale forever like Mythic Plus does, but like Mythic Plus, there's obviously going to get to a maximum level you can realistically get it to. I'm wondering what that actually is and how much time this game actually has that people can commit to it, how fast the drop off is going to be, and like what their plan is for seasons. That's one thing I don't think the Fellowship devs have said anything about, is like, is it going to be a seasonal rotation type game? Obviously we're in early access, so I wouldn't expect there to be seasons until they actually push the completed version of the game. But like, how's that going to work? Like, I think there's a lot of what ifs here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very popular. There's a lot of things, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it with you at the end of the episode. I think there's a lot of things that we can take to World of Warcraft with this and say how we can maybe improve the Mythic Plus system, and also answer some questions we've had about potential improvements to the Mythic Plus system that we get to see in action in Fellowship, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hold commenting too super much until later. We're already talking about Fellowship more than I anticipated early on. They did say something about seasons in their Discord and stuff, though, so I'll go over that when we get to the Fellowship part, and hopefully that'll answer some of the questions that you have.
Cool.
Okay, Scott, this is going to be the part of the podcast that I'm going to go absolutely off my fucking rocker.
Would you like me to serve as the role of talking you off the ledge?
Potentially, but I don't think that there is a talking me off the ledge currently, because man, is it bad. It is bad. So if you didn't read the Crest datamine changes, and maybe you're talking me off the ledge is going to say, oh, hey, by the way, there was more data mining and you're not actually thinking about this the right way. But the last thing that I read was they are almost over doubling the amount of crests, or are over doubling the amount of crests that you need to upgrade them.
Yes.
Which is bad.
That is true. So I think we should, the caveat here is that this is data mine changes, right? They have not officially announced this or provided any explanation for any of this, but I think basically when it was announced, and we talked about this already, that it was announced that they are changing the way crests work, that they're changing the names of crests, and the fact that you will get hero crest to upgrade hero gear, you will get myth crest to upgrade mythic gear, you will get what do they call them? The normal champion crest to upgrade normal gear. Like, that's how it's going to work. We're not going to do any of these confusing names anymore. There's not going to be any bleed over where the same piece of gear requires multiple types of crests. We're going to simplify all that, and just one the type of gear determines the type of crest you need, and that's just the end of it. And we had some questions in that, and one of the questions that I had was like, well, how are those transition periods going to work, right? Are we going to just remove them completely? Like, because right now, if you have a hero gear thing, the last 2 levels of your hero gear also are the first 2 levels of a mythic piece. And are they going to do away with that in Midnight? Are they just going to make them so they don't have this threshold, this transition threshold of 2 levels at all? Or what? That was my question. And the answer we got through this data mining was no, they are not doing away with that threshold, that like a hero 5 of 6 gear will be equivalent in item level to a myth 1 of 6 gear. But the change here is how you level those pieces. So right now, for those that maybe have forgotten on live, it takes 15 crests to level a piece of gear, no matter what, right? With the exception of if you've discounted it by unlocking a thing. 15 crests. So level 1, level 6, whatever, 15 crests. The change is in Midnight, it will cost more crests the closer you get to the maximum level of the piece of gear. So a hero 1 of 6 item to upgrade to 2 of 6 will cost 10 crests, and then it goes 20, and then it goes 30, and then it goes 40. And to upgrade a hero piece of gear from 5 of 6 to 6 of 6, you need 50 crests. And that is the same for myth gear, right? So to upgrade, to max out, basically, if you get a mythic, a good way of thinking of this is if you get a mythic item in the vault right now, if you wanted to upgrade that mythic item to maximum, you would need 150 crests, which is, as you put it, double what you currently need, because you currently need 75. If you get an item in the vault, if you want to max that to full, you need 75 crests. So that is doubling the amount of crests you will need to max out all your items. And essentially, I think I know you hate this, and I'm not saying that I don't hate it. But I think I'm trying to look at it as like, what are they trying to accomplish with this thing? And and what is their philosophy behind it? And again, these are data mine changes, so we don't know the answers to those questions. We can merely speculate. And I'm going to attempt to speculate what I think is going on here. And the first thing is just, I think they are still relatively unhappy with the rate of gear acquisition and upgrading. Like in season 2 of Dragonflight, they introduced this new system. It was way too fast. We gained gear way too fast. We gained item level way too fast. It was basically 2 weeks and everyone was essentially done. And since then, they've kind of regularly like pulled back and slowed that down a little bit. And I think this is probably in some ways another method of slowing that process down just a little bit. Now, one could argue, does the process need to be slowed down? I don't know. I don't think so, but that's anecdotal. I don't know. I think it's fine where it is, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it needs to be slowed down. I also like, here's my thought process on like what I think could be being done here as well. And we talked about this a little bit. I think it was actually your observation in that in the transition periods between the two pieces of gear, you could spend more of the lower level crest to upgrade it to that level, or you could spend less of the higher level crest to upgrade it to said level.
Yeah.
And if that's the way it's implemented, I kind of hate it a little less. But the problem is like you have to think about how this interacts with myth gear, and for myth gear, that's still shitty. Like that is still so bad. And then like our response was like, well, if they're doing this, they better increase our crest cap. And well, lo and behold, they are. But by 10, you get 10 more crests despite needing 75 additional crests to upgrade one fucking piece.
What an arbitrary number. Yeah, I mean, like I think I think this is intentional, but the idea that you can get a new piece in the vault and commit every single crest you earn that week to that piece and not max it out feels weird. And if you ask them, I bet they would say, yeah, well, we don't like that. Actually, we don't like that you can get one new piece and just be done with the upgrading track on that piece in a week. It's like, okay, well, what about everything else we need to do though? Like what, again, one thing we still don't know is where crafted gear falls into this at all. They've said nothing about that. Is it going to be the same number of crests? Is it not? What kind of crest is it going to be? This is all up in the air. And yeah, I think one way that the system does get interesting is what you talked about, this idea that, okay, if you're a player that has a hero track piece, but is capable of getting myth gear, like, we talked about last week that I was like, there's this weird decision thing that has to happen at that tree where it's like, actually you only upgrade your hero track stuff to 4 out of 6, and then you just wait to get a myth track item in the vault because you get to skip the hero 5 out of 6 part. So you essentially get 15 free crests, and making it so that was changing the way the crest work. It was going to make that go away. What this does is actually makes that come back, but it makes it come back in like a super confusing way. Like imagine if you and I think this only applies to min-maxers. I think any of this only applies to min-maxers, but like imagine if you're a mythic raider that's trying to min-max your gear acquisition and you get an item in the vault and you're like, okay, wait a minute here. It's a 1 out of 6 item. I could spend 10 mythic crests to get it to a 2 out of 6. Or should I get a heroic item and then spend 50 heroic crests getting that heroic item up to the max, thus making sure my mythic item can skip a need for 10 crests, thus making sure I am spending the least amount of mythic crests possible, because if you're a mythic raider, myth crests are going to be what you're capped on. Like that's going to dictate. And so it just feels like to me, anytime you open the vault, anytime you get a piece of gear, anytime you make any kind of upgrade decision, what you're going to end up having to do is get out like a fucking spreadsheet or check a website and just like be like, okay, what's like, people already like sim every time they open their vault, right? They run to a third party system and they sim. Now you're not just going to have to sim what gear is a DPS game, but you're going to have to sim like what is the most what is the quickest, most logical progression path for all this crest nonsense? And in a system that I think their stated goal was simplifying it and making it easier to understand and process, I think for the min-max crowd, this does the exact opposite. And I know throughout the history of this game, they have been like, we don't want when you get a new piece of gear that you have to like figure like the reason they got rid of so much gemming was they didn't want you have to like and reforging and like we don't want you to get a new piece of gear and that's like to run to town and do like 10 things to the gear before you can actually equip it. Well, now this is like every time you get a new piece of gear, you have to do 10 things to the piece of gear outside of the game to ensure you are being the most efficient with your leveling up of it. And it's just like what at first in my head sounded like a cool nifty like decision process there where it's like, oh, I like obviously upgrading this gear, it saves time. But if it saves total number of overall crests if I use myth crests, but like those are a more precious commodity. So like that's like a fun thing to think of. But I think in just like the execution of it and the day-to-day of it for the players, that's gonna feel really weird. And I am ultimately okay with them slowing down the gearing progress. I mean, whatever. Like all I care about with gearing is I feel that sense of progress, right? That is tangible and it feels like week to week. You're like, I feel like I'm getting more powerful. I feel like I'm able to do more dungeons. I feel like my numbers are going up. I feel like this fight that was hard to heal last week is a little bit easier to heal now. Like that's what I care about. And you can slow that down maybe a little bit as long as you still allow people to feel that thing. But it is really weird the idea of dropping 50 crests is so many crests on one upgrade. It's just like that's a huge change. And we've been talking about the hero myth like breakpoint because that is where we live essentially. But like this is going to be true across the board, right? This is going to be true for the champion gear. It's going to be true for the veteran gear and the adventurer gear. Like this is going to be true for all levels of gear, and all levels of gear will still have the 100 per week crest cap. And so it's just going to be like, I don't know. It's going to feel overwhelming. I think it's like, imagine you get a piece of gear and you have like 40 crests and you're like, sweet, I can't wait to level up. Nope. Sorry. You got to wait a week,
dropping
2 weeks.
half of your weekly crest cap to get one upgrade is asinine.
Yeah.
Like in no world does that feel good. Like currently to upgrade an item from nothing to a max crafted item, you spend 30 crests or 60 crests. Sorry.
60. Yeah.
Like,
well, that's, I mean, again, they haven't said anything about crafting, but my assumption here is they have to make crafting cost more if they do this, right? Like there's no way there's a world in which it takes 50 crests to get from 5 out of 6 to 6 out of 6. And yet you're going to be able to craft something equivalent to 5 out of 6 from nothing for 60 total crests. Like that's just, it's just not happening. Not under this philosophy. They have to increase that amount. And like, that's going to be like, they did that. Remember in season 1, it cost 90 crests to upgrade something. And everyone fucking hated that because it was too many. It was your entire week's supply of crests on one crafted thing. And people didn't like that. And so now we're going to have to balance having enough crests to make your new crafted thing every week, which I'm assuming is going to cost more than 60. You have to balance that with also the idea that you have these myth track items that you're going to be getting every week that you're not going to be able to upgrade to full. Like it right now, it at least feels nice to be like, all right, 90 crests. I need 75 to upgrade a myth track item. So I got a myth track item in my vault. I upgraded that to 75. I have 15 crests left over. I can bank those and put those towards next week is a spark week. I'll put those 15 towards next week. And I only need to use 45 from next week. And then so that I have 45 left over and those can go towards whatever myth. Like there's all these things that you can do right now that those calculations and those ideas are just not going to be there in the future version of this. And so it just feels weird. I'm interested to see if this ends up going live, or is this just something they were tinkering with and it got onto the alpha. I mean, it's weird that it's like it's on the alpha right now, but obviously there's nothing, no one is doing anything on the alpha right now that I think gives any of this stuff. So these are all just data mine changes.
Yep.
And I'm curious to see if this makes it into the beta, and if what form it makes it into the beta. Because I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be unpopular, regardless of if it makes sense for the game. It's going to be unpopular because essentially what you were telling people is you have less stuff. You get stuff half as slow now, and that's not going to be popular.
I think my biggest complaint with this is it seems like it's like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. Like we we are removing barriers that were just annoying and there arbitrarily to slow you down already and removing Valor Stones. And now we're taking two steps back and saying you have to spend 150 crests to upgrade a piece of gear. Like that to me is why it's the most annoying and why I'm a little bit pissed off about it. Is because like it almost feels like this is like a direct antithesis to the whole reason that we removed Valor Stones. Like, I guess an argument could be made that Valor Stones were actually removed because they were like useless anywhere else. They're actually pretty useless in upgrading your gear too. But like the reason Valor Stones were there was so you kind of had a check on the amount of currency that you had. It was there to force you to interact with different parts of the game, and you had to have both Valor Stones and crests, and in some situations you didn't have enough Valor Stones to upgrade something, so it kind of slowed you down. So in essence, that's what Valor Stones were doing. The problem though, like I said, is it feels like removing Valor Stones was like a hey, everybody wants this, here you go, but also here's something that nobody else wants either. Like it feels super bad. I really hope that this doesn't go live. Like you said, this is currently just a data mine change. And I don't know if it does go live, maybe it won't be that bad. And I'm just overreacting because I haven't gotten to experience it. But I really, really hate the idea of this, like really bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably won't be as bad as we feel like it is going live. But it's not going to be popular, and it's going to be weird, and it's going to take some getting used to. So yeah, I appreciate them always trying to experiment with the gear acquisition and the gearing process, and I also understand they're a company that their goal is to keep people playing for as long as possible. But I've always been of the opinion that should be done through making engaging and exciting systems that make people want to log in, and not artificial time gating and hand holding type stuff. And I've gotten over the idea that we're going to have a crest cap, that we're going to very specifically control how much gear a person can acquire in a given week. That's part of the game now. I get it. But yeah, just slowing that down by half is a pretty dramatic change. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe they tinker with the numbers a bit. Maybe it's not 10 to 50. Maybe it's something else slightly more reasonable. I definitely think they're not going to do a thing that's like, I think if you ask them, the stated goal would be like, we don't want a person to upgrade one piece of gear with 1 week's worth of crests is what they say. Which I don't know if I agree with that, but sure. Okay. I think it's important to note that Fellowship is a game that does not have any of these restrictions in, right? There's no week. There's none of this. Like you can earn as much gear and as many points in a single week as you want, as we've seen this week, where people have climbed all the way up the ladder. Basically done a season's worth of WoW work in a single week, but they don't want you to do that in World of Warcraft, right? That's you have to pay a subscription for that. So that's not what they want.
That was a pretty smooth segue and like transitioning into the next thing that we want to talk about before I start crashing out. So kudos to you on that one, Scott.
Thank you.
Kudos.
I've been doing this for a while.
But yes, so I do think that this is going to be something that is going to be the most polarizing between the two games. And it is one thing that I think like this is kind of the allure of Fellowship, right? Like it takes the whole like time gating kind of MMO-y, keep people playing as long as we can ness out of Mythic Plus. Essentially removes anything outside of Mythic Plus that you would have to do to get gear. And just gives you that raw experience, and you continue to get gear and progress and can upgrade things the entire time. They don't have a limit on what you can and can't achieve in a week, as long as you stair step your way up their progression system. So it's interesting. But I guess I want to go back to what you were saying earlier, about seasons and stuff, because I want to answer those questions, and then we can kind of circle back here. So on the Discord, I believe it was one of their community managers stated that they are attempting to do seasons, or are wanting to do seasons, and they're aiming currently. The thought is for about 3 to 4 month seasons.
Okay.
And so that isn't set in stone yet. Obviously, they haven't announced the next season. They haven't even started doing planning around the next season, is my understanding. Obviously, the game just launched. There's been some things that they needed to make sure of, and yada yada yada. But they say that for a lot of seasonal games, that's kind of the sweet spot, and so they want to do that. And then to the other point that you said of doing seasons in early access, I don't think that that's going to be too out of the ordinary, because Path of Exile was a game that was in early access forever. Path of Exile 2 is currently in early access, and they still do 3 month seasonal content currently. So
See, this is when early access just stops being early access, and I don't
correct.
I don't like it. I don't like it. But
yeah,
okay, that makes sense. I wonder like what the progression path is going to look. This is funny because I was treating like an MMO and being like, "Are you telling me I'm going to have to relearn all my talents in a new season?" And like as an MMO person, that I go, "What? No, that's terrible." But Fellowship is, and I've seen a lot of people say this opinion, and so I'm repeating what other people have said, but I happen to agree with it. Fellowship is much closer to an ARPG like Path of Exile than it is an MMORPG. It is not an MMO at all. And so I am completely fine with the seasonal model. I hope they also mix new dungeons in there as they do that as well. I think that would be pretty key, and I'm sure they'll introduce new classes and stuff along the line. But that's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of things in this game. I think one thing a lot of people have been talking about so much is that it removes itself from the burden of the MMO stuff that WoW has. So that like Mythic Plus is only one pillar of World of Warcraft, and so it has to abide by all these things, and that's like the crest cap, right? That's like a thing that Fellowship doesn't have to worry about, because it's not trying to balance raid and single player stuff and Mythic Plus and all these things at the same time. It's not trying to balance any of that stuff, and so it doesn't have to worry about that. And then things like add-ons, right? Like this is a game where you only use the base UI, but the base UI has all the things that Blizzard wants to build their base UI. Fellowship already has those built in, right? It has their own damage meter, has their own boss mods. It has the plater, the nameplates. It has all those things built in, right?
Yeah. I'm putting my hand up here because I gotta call out the I don't even know what you want to call it, because hypocrisy might be a bit of a strong term, but
no,
all
right.
of the people who are like not having add-ons in WoW is going to kill the game are also I'm just going to call him by name. JB is one of the people who is just like, not having add-ons in WoW is going to kill this game. Nobody's going to play it. This is stupid. Why would you ever do this? And now he's over here playing Fellowship, which doesn't have add-ons and has all of the built-in shit in the game. Like, I just like, excuse me? Like, everything that you're bitching about, you clearly don't fucking care in this game. So like, what's the difference here, man?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the thing is like Fellowship is a game built from the ground up to not have add-ons and to give you. Now, I think some people would say, and I would agree with them, that there are some things that Fellowship does not tell you right now that I kind of wish it did. Fellowship does not have death logs, right? There is no way of seeing. All you can see is what the damage that killed you, like the last hit that killed you. So it doesn't have death logs. It doesn't have things like this that I think they could add to the game to improve it. But yeah, it was a game that was kind of built around the information that you have available to you in the game is the information that you have, and that's all. And they build and balance the game around that. Now, this is like the goal of what World of Warcraft is trying to do. And I'm not saying they're trying to make their game like Fellowship. No, it's their own game. It's their design. But like, this is the goal, is that they want to pare back these add-ons, and then the design of encounters will be built from the ground up with the knowledge that the only things you can have on your screen and the only things you can know are the things that are right there in front of you. And that's what they're trying to do. So like, again, this is a good way of like seeing this in action, kind of. This is like, if WoW manages to pull it off, it's not going to look exactly like this, but it's going to look similar to this, to where the information that you need is on the screen. And
and that's just like, I don't know, that to me, that's why I said I started off this whole discussion last week that we had about add-on, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, about add-ons. Like, I do not see a world in where if this is achieved correctly, it's bad, because in Fellowship, it's not bad. Yes, there are things that need to be added, but that is what incremental development's for.
Yeah.
I guarantee you those things are going to be added. It's fine. It's fine if it's not nailed the first time. Like, it needs to be at least as good as, like, for example, if you are removing Plater, it needs to be as good as base Plater. All right? Like, all of the extra shit you can do with Plater doesn't necessarily have to be in the initial release, because not everybody does that. But people do install Plater because your fucking nameplates suck. And so your nameplates need to be at least as good as default Plater. And it's the same thing with all the other add-ons they're removing. It needs to be at least as good as the bare minimum. And if it's not, that's where, if you don't nail it, you're going to absolutely piss people off. Now, there's going to be a bunch of extra shit that needs to be added. There's power users for everything, right? Like, there are people who can spin up a weak aura to do something for you in like 10 fucking seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like the most complex weak aura you've ever seen in your life if you're just a general user of weak auras. So like, yes, there's going to be things missing, but are you going to need them anymore? I think the answer to that should be no, because everything, like Scott said, should be displayed and there in their out of the box solution for this. So I don't know. I just apologies for putting my hand up like a little school child, but I had to call out the fucking hypocrisy, because JB is by far one of the most like prevalent WoW streamers right now, who is pushing some of the hardest in Fellowship, but also one of the most vocal when it comes to the removal of add-ons being the absolute death of this game. And it just kind of like, it makes me laugh a little bit.
It's ironic. Yes, I agree. But so I think there are some other things that Fellowship can maybe give us a preview on that we wondered would work in the Mythic Plus system. And one of those things, obviously, is Fellowship is a game that allows you to solo queue, right? There is, you can build a team and go to these things, or you can just queue by yourself and get into just about any dungeon. I think the exception to this is Eternal mode. I believe right now, if you're in Eternal mode, you have to be in a pre-made group to do that. There's no queue system for that, but that's the end game. So that's not too much of a problem. And you know, this is something we've talked about quite a bit, is like, should Mythic Plus have a queue system? Should there be like an ability to solo queue for Mythic Plus? And we've like kind of gone over like the good and the bad of that, how that would work in the system and what trouble that would cause and what problems it would solve and wouldn't solve. And I think Fellowship actually does afford us a pretty good preview of what something like this could work like. And I've had my struggles with it. I think so just to let people know that don't play Fellowship, how this works is you have you have quick play mode, which just will match you with 3 other people, throw you in a dungeon. It doesn't really scale. It's pretty simple. It gives you small little rewards. But the majority of the time you're going to be playing the game, you're going to be in ranked play, which is there are 4 ranks from contender to adept to champion to paragon, and then it goes endless. And you basically move up these ranks by timing keys within the ranks, earning score, and then there's like a dungeon at the end of the rank that is like a long 30-minute dungeon with 3 bosses that is similar to a Mythic Plus dungeon. Timing that will unlock the next rank. So basically, I spent my week. I didn't get to play that much, but I'm playing a lot. I spent my week in contender mode, kind of slowly gearing up, and I was solo queuing for the most of it. And queues weren't great. I think it's funny because we talked about in the beta that like there were a shit ton of tanks and a shit ton of healers, and we were like, "Why is this? This doesn't make any sense. This is not the way it should be." And one of the things we said is, I wonder if this is just because like it's a beta thing, and like once the game actually comes out, like all we're gonna see is a shit ton of DPS players, and everything else is gonna normal out. And that's basically exactly what happened. Healers, there's still more healers than there is in a game like WoW. And I think maybe it's because the healing is a lot less stressful in this game, so people are more willing to try it. But I was, especially over the weekend when the server stuff was having an issue, I was having some pretty lengthy queues at time. And I was struggling with the system because basically, so what happens is you queue into your rank of whatever league you're in, contender, and it will, based on dungeons you've timed before, so your score and your current item level, it will match you with people and then pop up to the four of you an option of 3 dungeons of increasing difficulty. So like a equivalent of like a 3, a 4, and a 5. And then you and the 3 other people get to vote on which of the 3 you want to do. The one with the most votes wins, and then the dungeon will start. I was trying to, in ranked mode, get into the 7, the contender 7, which is the long 3 boss dungeon that will unlock adept, because I thought I had enough item level, and I was trying to get in it, and like it was just not popping up. It was just like never popping up. I would get like a 3, 4, 5 queue, or occasionally a 4, 5, 6 queue, and I would just never get the 7 queue. And I had no idea what I was like. How do I do this? If I want to do this dungeon, how do I do it? I only learned until later that there is an item level check on that basically the game, until you have a 60 item level, that will just not, you will not be matched with people that will get that as an option. But it doesn't tell you that in the game anywhere. There's no, like, the only way you can know that is the requirement to unlock adept is actually time this dungeon and have an average item level of 60. So like you could maybe use that to guess that that's what you need to actually get the dungeon to appear in your solo queue mode. But there's nowhere in the game that tells you that. So I was just like grinding these dungeons again, just like waiting. When is the 7 going to pop up? When is the 7 going to... I read that. I leveled up all my gear, to get an average item level of 60, and then of course finally it pops up. But that is when the other problem with the solo queue system reared its head, that I think this needs to be considered from a WoW perspective. Right now in this game, there is absolutely no penalty for leaving. There's no penalty for leaving the queue. There's no penalty for leaving an active dungeon. If you want to leave, you just leave, and that's it. And I'm not saying they should add a penalty for these things, but what's happening is, because you don't get to pick your dungeon in solo queue, right? You don't get to pick it. You get one of 3 options. What people are doing is they're hitting the queue button, the queue's popping. If they don't see the dungeon they want on it, they're just dropping the group instantly. They just leave right away. Or if people vote, if the dungeon they do want pops up, but people vote for another one, they're just like, oh, okay, bye. And like that happened to me so many times over the weekend, that so many times, so, like even the contender 7, the dungeon I wanted to do would pop up. I would vote for it. Nobody else would. Everyone else would vote for the 6, maybe because they're queuing because they just want to do a 12-minute quick experience, not because they want to do a 30-minute dungeon. But there's no way of differentiating those people, right? So what you get is 3 people voting for one thing, me saying, well, I don't want to do that one thing. I want to do this. This is what I want to do now. And so like, these are like problems that I think need to be thought about a little bit. I still think like the best way to play any of these games is to get a 5 stack, or I guess in Fellowship a 4 stack. Like it's just the best way to play these games. It will always be the best way to play these games. The first time I timed the 7 was with a group of our friends. And so like, that is just always going to be the case. And I think this queue system works very, very well. But, you know, that's one of the questions we asked. Like, if they add a solo queue to WoW, like, are you going to be able to queue for a specific key level? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then like you segment your queue population like crazy,
Yep.
right? You take, if there's 1,000 people queuing for dungeons, and then you allow people to queue for a specific dungeon, then you've segmented those 1,000 people into like groups of 100, or a couple groups of 200 or 300, and then a couple groups of like 5.
Yeah.
And like that is going to make queue times crazy. So like the reason why they did this, and they have the 3 options, is to kind of avoid that and to get people generally together. There's also a button you can check on the queue that says only match me with people who have timed the same level of keys that I have, which I think is very understandable. But checking that button, especially if you're a DPS, ramps up your queue time pretty considerably. So like it's not a perfect system. It works pretty well for what it's done. I think hopefully in the actual launch of the game, they will like add things to explain, like, here's your item level cutoff. You're not there yet, and that's why you're not seeing this dungeon. That's why you're not like, and that's true not just for the end of ranked dungeons, but that's true for like the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, right? It's like there's nothing in the game that tells you you've acquired enough item level that now a 6 will appear in your queue.
Yeah.
Of contender or adept or champion or any of it. None of that's there.
I have a question for you, Scott. So the reason that initially you and I were kind of against solo queuing in WoW, outside of segmenting the population, is there's already a dungeon finder tool. And while I think that adding a solo queue tool will segment people into different key levels, like you said, potentially it would also segment people away from like searching for a specific dungeon or something like that. That being said, that sounds like something Fellowship would greatly benefit from, the ability to target one dungeon. Because if you're in a group of 4 people, you can select the exact dungeon at the exact level that you want to do, and you can just go do it. And there's no, like, if you're in a group of 4, you don't get to pick from 3. You do the one you want to do, and that's it.
Yeah.
So like, I almost wonder if there would be, like, if you could put in like a preference for whatever dungeon you want to do in the queue system or something like that, so that you can get matched with people who want to do the same thing as you.
Yeah, I think there is no looking for group tool in the game right now. And I think probably that's intentional, because they want you to use the queue system to ensure a continuous population of people in the queue system. And there is no way in the game to like, the best you can do to try to like form groups within the game itself is you can like talk in the instance of the stronghold you're in, because when you log into the game, you're in an instance of the stronghold, and you share that instance with, I don't know how many players. I don't know how they decide how many players in each one of those instances. There's probably just a cap, and you can say, and I see people do that every so often when they're like running a blah blah blah, need 2 DPS or need a healer or need a tank, and I see people doing that, and that's like the most you can do within the game to coordinate. Now, of course, there's plenty of ways to do that outside the game, right? I mean, even in the Fellowship, the official Fellowship Discord, there's like looking for group channels where you could just post, I'm looking for a group to do this dungeon, can we link up and do it? So there's ways of doing this, but I would say they probably don't want to do something like that within the game, specifically because they want the queue system to be used and utilized, and they don't want to do things that really segment the queue system too much. For that reason, this is exactly why I think when people talk about adding something like this to World of Warcraft, it's like, well, you're going to add this and not take away the other thing, and you're just get like, are the queues going to be a disaster?
Yeah, I mean, so they're going to do one or the other. Like,
Yeah.
that's just going to become the normal in WoW, and that's how people are going to do it, right? So,
yeah.
I think that this is a very interesting way to handle things. I think that the biggest complaint that I have is the leaving one. Now, leaving a dungeon in progress, I guess I have less of an issue with, and maybe that's just because I'm jaded and I played WoW for so long that like I completely understand. It looks like we're not going to time a dungeon. People don't want to waste their time and they just leave. But the leaving when there's like you've went in, you've queued, you don't get the thing that you want, or people aren't voting for the thing you want, and then you leave. Like, I feel like there should be some sort of like cooldown on you queuing again or something like that. Like there should be a slight punishment for that. It shouldn't be over the top. It shouldn't be awful, but I feel like there should be something to dissuade people from doing that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. There should be some sort of slap on the hand consequence for that. It is really annoying, and like it's funny because you get a group that you like right now. The bottleneck in the game is tanks. Surprising no one, the least amount of the things that people are playing in the game is tanks, and it's just because people don't want the responsibility of being a tank. It's a lot of responsibility. People are always not going to want the responsibility. So that is the bottleneck in the game right now. And I've seen this thing happen where like you get a group together and one of the DPS drops immediately. And that when that happens, you get kicked out of the queue, but you're all still grouped together, the other three of you. And like every time I'm like, we have a tank in the group. Let's just re-queue. But like the tank just leaves immediately because he's like, who are you? You're nothing to him, and he can immediately re-queue and get a group instantly. So why would he stick around? So it's just like the second a person leaves, everyone leaves the group and falls apart, and you go back into the queue and you basically start from the beginning. So, I mean, I think the healer queues have gotten a lot more reasonable as things have kind of settled out. But like, I can't imagine solo queuing as a DPS and that happening. I mean, frankly, I'm shocked when DPS do it, when they leave the queue. Like, I'm just like, why? How long did you wait that you're willing to just drop out because you didn't get the dungeon you wanted? Geez, it's just very surprising. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they probably need to introduce some sort of cooldown. It doesn't have to be like a 30-minute deserter thing like WoW does, but maybe just like a just cause you to like maybe stop and think. But at the same time, I also don't want to force people. I mean, that's the weird thing about the queue system is like, I don't want to force you to do a dungeon that you don't really want to do or need either. Right. Like that's like, imagine you're a Mythic Plus and you're like a world where they've taken away the looking for group thing and all you have is Mythic Plus solo queue. And you're like, man, I'm almost at 3K score. I just need these 2 more dungeons. And you queue and neither of those dungeons pop up. And you're like, fuck. Okay. I guess the game will punish me if I drop out here. So I guess I'll do this dungeon. So you spend 30 minutes, you do a dungeon you don't need, you don't get any loot, and then you're back in the system again. I said, well, okay, that is important factor of saying this is like, you do get loot in Fellowship. You get loot every time in Fellowship. There is something in the box for you every time in Fellowship, no matter what. So that is a difference that, again, I don't think World of Warcraft will be able to do. But for the purpose of my example, you don't get any loot, and then you queue again, and you're sitting in a queue for 20 minutes. Dungeon thing pops. Once again, neither of the 2 dungeons you need, and it's just like I totally get the type of person that would just be like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm just going to start dropping group until I get what I need. So yeah, I mean, like, I think it's bad behavior. I think it sucks, but I also completely understand it from a psychological perspective.
What happened? So like, this is going to be a fundamental change on how they do their queuing system. But like, what if they did something like this? When you enter queue, you enter in as your role, right? Because you play a character in this game. You don't like, each character has their specific thing they do, and that's what they do. You don't have like specs or anything like that. So
Sure.
You get your role. And when you queue in, you also have to select one of the like contender dungeons. And then when the queue pops, and maybe there's a random as well. Like if you don't care, you can just select random. But instead of just showing you 3 random dungeons, it now shows you all 4 of the ones that people wanted to do. And then people can vote on that.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to think out what the consequences of that would possibly be. Other than just like people being pissed off that their dungeon always loses. I mean, it would be cool to see like you did that and like 3 of the 4 people, like that the system would attempt to match people who all voted for the same dungeon, right? But in the interest of time, if it couldn't find enough to fill a full group that all want to do that same dungeon, then it starts to open it up to, okay, 2 people voted for this dungeon, but 2 people voted for a different dungeon, and that's the best we can do right now. So let's go ahead and throw those together and see if they are okay with one of. Yeah, that might work. Yeah, I don't know.
I would like to see something like I would like to see you have some sort of agency in what you do instead of just like boom, 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 3 random things, none of which you might need.
Yeah.
Like you might not need score, you might not need items from those dungeons. Like it would be nice for you to have some sort of input into what appears for you to even vote on. And like the problem with this system that I suggested is if you are selecting a specific dungeon and you queue in with 4 people, everyone's just going to pick their own dungeon, right? Like
Yeah.
that would be the issue.
Yeah.
But like you said, if there is any sort of logic in the matchmaking to try and put you with people who at least want to do the same dungeon, maybe not at the same level, but the same dungeon, that could be maybe better. I don't know. But again, that'd be like almost rewriting from the ground up, I feel like, their entire matchmaking system. So.
Yeah. It could be. And again, I think one thing that this game definitely has over WoW with this whole idea is that like no matter what, you're going to get stuff at the end of the dungeon, no matter what. Like even if you don't time it, I think is an important thing to note. Now, in the contender dungeons, there is actually no penalty for not timing it. Like except for score, you don't get score, and of course, if you don't time the big 3 boss dungeon, you can't unlock the next mode. But as far as gear goes, there's absolutely no penalty. Starting in the adept and higher ones, you will always get gear at one difficulty level lower than the one you're in if you don't time it. So if you're doing a 3 and you don't time it, you get gear as if it was a 2. But that's still the only penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the idea of being match made into a thing that I don't really need, like, is okay and more okay in Fellowship for 2 reasons. One of which is because of the gear thing we just talked about. The other of which that we haven't talked about at all is the fact that the majority of the dungeons in this game are like 10 to 13 minute like micro dungeons. And so being forced to do something that I don't really need, but the queue system put it up for me, and doing that for 10 minutes is a much easier ask than it is for a 30 to 35 minute dungeon, right? Those are 2 completely different things. And so this is another way in which you're not just gonna be able to pick up this queue system and drop it down in World of Warcraft. It's not going to work because they don't want to give you rewards for every dungeon. And because World of Warcraft is 30 minute to 35 minute 3 to 4 boss dungeons. I was thinking about that today, actually. And I was thinking about the idea that would WoW be served better if it did have some of these like mini dungeons that that Fellowship has, that like if there was a dungeon experience in World of Warcraft that was like 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long, 15 minutes long. I'm surprised at how much I like them. Like I really like when we talked about this after the beta, I was very much just like, it feels weird that we're not like in a dungeon that has like multiple bosses and it's like a long trek through the dungeon. I'm surprised at how much I like these little short contained 10-minute things. Because even when you get stuck in a bad one, it's like, it's 10 minutes, right? 15 at the most. So
Scott,
what?
WoW has these.
Don't you dare say it. It's not the same at all. It is not Delves. It is not Delves. I don't know. No. But but you're right. This is why they're never going to do it in WoW, because like the Blizzard would say, yeah, we have those. It's called Delves. I actually like one thing that I find missing in the Dungeons and Fellowship, and as much as I like this game, all of the World of Warcraft dungeons tell a story, right? They are designed to tell a story. It's not the best story in the world, right? The storytelling in this game is not great, but it's there, right? And you're entering a dungeon, and the dungeon is telling something is happening in the dungeon, and that story usually progresses over the course of the dungeon as you go. That is not present in Fellowship at all. Like I have no idea what's happening in any of these dungeons, and like sometimes there are people like talking to you about how, no, you can't let me do. You must do this, and it's like it's meaningless to you because there's no story in this game whatsoever. And there doesn't need to be, right? There doesn't need to be. I'm completely fine with this is an ARPG, basically. It's a dungeon simulator. I'm completely fine with this game being in its lane, and I like it for what it is. But when I think about stuff like, what can we take from this game to put into World of Warcraft? And when I think about the idea of having these short 12-minute one boss dungeons, I think about what we would lose in World of Warcraft, and I think we would lose some of that storytelling. As not great as it is, I think it does add a little bit of flavor to the dungeon, and then I would I think hate to lose that in WoW.
Yeah, but the reason you would hate to lose that in WoW is because like WoW ultimately is a role-playing game. Like
Correct.
That is the driving force behind WoW, is to go through this world that is Azeroth and all of the things that we get into and conquer them.
That's
so
correct. Yeah.
That's why, albeit if you don't care about the story in WoW, that's fine. But in some way, shape, or form, one way or another, you're being driven by the story parts of the game.
Yeah.
Whether it's subconsciously or consciously. Like it
totally
just
agree.
happens.
Yeah, totally agree.
So that being said, though, Scott, I do want to talk about a couple of things with Fellowship that I think, I don't know if it's something that I feel like WoW could learn from or maybe lean into, but there are things in Fellowship around gearing that I think WoW could take some pretty good inspiration from. So if you go into a dungeon right now in Fellowship and you get a piece of gear that you already have, or something you already have a better slot of, you can take that piece of gear and you can do a couple things with it. You can scrap it down for gold, and then gold is used to upgrade other items that you're wearing. So that's one avenue. Another avenue that you can go down is you can go to this like reforger guy, and he can take that piece of gear and randomly turn it into a different slot. And so you can do things with duplicate pieces of gear, whereas in WoW, like once you're done with hero track gear, or once like you have full hero track gear and you're starting to get myth pieces and you're doing 10s or higher, the end of dungeon loot is meaningless. Like you don't do the dungeon for anything at the end of the dungeon. You're doing the dungeon for the sheer enjoyment of doing the dungeon and maybe the crests, but you're not doing it for the gear. Like the gear is absolutely pointless. So to give you something to do with that gear, I think would be very cool. Like if you could, like in Fellowship, gold would be the equivalent of like crests in WoW. If you could take a piece of gear that you don't need and scrap it down for some crests, that would be really cool. Or if you could take it to somebody and have it re-roll into some random other dungeon piece, like that'd be neat. I don't know how it would work in WoW, but something like that might alleviate the annoyance of whatever the fuck they're trying to do with the crest system in Midnight currently. So
what if you could scrap it down into crests, but your crests are still capped at 100 for the week?
I mean, that's probably what would happen if we're being completely honest with ourselves. So people would just stockpile gear from the previous weeks and then hit crest cap day one because they just scrap everything.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, while we're talking, I happen to have Dorky's stream open right now, and he's playing Fellowship, and he's solo queuing as a tank, and he's doing exactly what we talked about, is that he's trying to get the rank 7 contender dungeon on his, because he just started rolling the other tank. It doesn't pop up. He leaves the group. He queues again. Like, it's happening right now. So, like, what I'm saying is actually happening. I'm not just making this. I just wanted to point that out as we're talking. But no, I agree with you. I mean, again, this is the type of thing, and this is the excitement of a game like this, is that Mythic Plus is this wholly unique thing in the world. Like no other game does this until now, I guess. Like no other video game out there has a thing like Mythic Plus. It is fully and wholly unique, and that's what makes it special, and that's what you people like you and I love it so much. But it is a system that is ultimately hemmed in by the game that exists around it. There are so many things that are World of Warcraft that put limitations on Mythic Plus. And the exciting thing about Fellowship is, like, what if we took that out of the game, and therefore all of those requirements, all of those limitations, all of those things go away? What would that mean? What would that mean for the game? And that's the excitement part of it. So maybe ultimately we can look at those things and be like, oh, well, we felt like this was a limitation in World of Warcraft. We felt like this is a reason why they couldn't do this thing. But when we really look at it and break it down, no, we think the game can fully survive with one of those things. And I'm in agreement with you. Like, we're in the point, especially now in the season of WoW that like the idea of that chest at the end of the dungeon meaning nothing to you ever is shitty. And I think there's ways of fixing that for sure. What those ways look like, I don't even know myself, but I agree with you. There should be ways to try to figure that out. Cause yeah, I mean, like I've looted so many heroic pieces of gear over the last few weeks that I just sell for gold, and not like fellowship gold, like crests, but just like meaningless 100 gold. Hooray.
Pitiful gold. You'll never, it's just going to get consumed by your repair bill from all the wipes that you have.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that should be a goal for Mythic Plus in the long term, is always making that chest at the end of the dungeon exciting in some way or another. And like, I think Fellowship does it really well. I like it, and it feels ARPG, right? Because you are kind of constantly improving and getting drips and drabs, and like every dungeon you run is going to give you a little bit more of something, and there's no caps on it. There's never going to be any moment where you're not going to want to click on that chest and be excited about what's in there, whether it's something you can use, something you can transmogrify into something else, or something you just break down for a lot of gold that will help you level up your other stuff. So totally agree there.
Yeah. So the last thing that I did want to say, we commented on before, and I think it needs to be talked about again, is it still feels like, and fully understand they're in early access, right? But it still feels like there's not a ton of classes to play. Like, if you are a tank player, you have 2 options. If you are a healer player, you have 2 options. And if you're a DPS player, you have 5, but DPS players tend to kind of like have their own niches. So if you're a caster player, you have 2 options. If you're like a hunter player, ranged like mentality kind of thing, you've got 1. And if you're a melee, you've got 2. So like there's not a ton of diversity still. And
No.
I ultimately hope that grows, but I will also say, based off of what I have seen so far from people streaming the game, people I have played with, and other like articles, it seems like things are very well balanced right now. And you don't get balanced this tight if you explode into having 95 different things that you can play. So I'm a little bit fearful of that too, but I would like to see there be a little bit more variety potentially as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one thing, we talk about, the classes are pretty simple as well, like the 6-button rotation type thing. I mean, it's essentially like, again, another comparison point to WoW is like, maybe this is where WoW is trying to get to as far as rotational complexity of the characters. And again, people are still really worried about that. And I really just don't think that's anything we need to worry about. I think the classes are still going to be plenty complex, and I think the classes in Fellowship are still fairly complex. I mean, there's different build variety and talents for sure, and also there's just like a lot of, again, like when we talk about complexity, we talk about like how much information your brain can handle at any one given time, right? And so like the game is going to require, Fellowship requires this, World of Warcraft is going to require this, is going to require you to pay closer attention to what is going on the screen, because you do not or will not have a thing that is going to pop up and says kick now, and you just press your button, you don't have to think about it. You're actually going to have to like watch the cast bar, or you're actually going to have to like look on the ground. And so the cognitive load is going to shift in what it's doing. And that's true in Fellowship, right? The rotations are not that complicated. The characters are not that complicated to play, but there's a lot more like mental load on the bosses and the environments, and solving and seeing when the kicks come and making sure, and like all these things. It's true. It's just true. And I haven't even gotten to the point of the game where it gets like particularly hard. Like Adept is definitely a step up from Contender, but it's not like super impossible, oh my god type stuff. But that's just true. And so this is another way where you can see Fellowship maybe being like where WoW is wanting to go in some way, shape, or form. I still think the classes in WoW will be a lot more complicated, and there will just the fact that there's a billion specs and so many more talents, and it's just going to be a more complicated game, and that's okay. It should be. I think it should be. I'm not saying they need to turn that game into Fellowship at all. No, I like World of Warcraft for what it is. I like the changes they're going, but like I don't want it. I want it to take maybe some of the lessons learned from this ARPG that uses the Mythic Plus system, but that's what I want.
Yeah, I will say one of the things that's the most interesting to me is seeing a lot of people go through and like there's this mechanic that happens in the 3 boss dungeon that you have to do to move on from contender, where it spawns this little like spiky ball thing and then it follows you around, and if it hits you it explodes and deals damage to your whole group. But there are so many times where like I see myself almost getting hit by this because I get no notification it's coming out. I get no auditory thing at all happens. It just is appearing on the screen. And I'm so Pavloved into like paying attention to the one thing I'm hitting, the one thing I'm needing to focus on kicking, and like kind of just ignoring my feet or things that are coming at me from beside me or whatever half the time. And like, it like this ball gets so close to me and then I'm like, oh shit. And then I've got to move. And so like, it's definitely interesting. And I don't know, it's kind of a breath of fresh air to like actually have to pay attention to everything that's going on in the poll instead of just like paying attention to the one thing that I know that I'm going to need to kick in the next 5 seconds and watching if there's going to be a swirly under my feet. Which I probably get an audio cue for when that goes out, so I don't really need to pay attention to that. So yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. I really like it personally, and so I think that this is going to be pretty cool, and I hope that that's kind of how the polls for trash mobs and bosses are in WoW and then upcoming expansion too.
Kevin, this weird thing happened where this boss I was fighting cast an AoE and it did damage to the group, and there was nothing that went AoE, and I didn't know what to do. How was I supposed to know it was an AoE coming? I didn't know what to do. I freaked out.
Well, yeah. The other thing I've noticed too, and like I think this is why healers are being played so much in Fellowship, is like not only is it less stressful, but from what I understand from healer players, like the healing in Fellowship is actually like real fucking good, like really good.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's like if you read the post that Blizzard has made for the past 3 expansions on what they want healing to be, healing in Fellowship is that. It is less bursty. It is much more resource management and kind of knowing when to heal the person at the right time, and less I have 2 globals to get everyone's health up to full, and if I don't do it, everyone's going to die. And that feels good. So yeah, again, this is another example of like, if WoW pulls off what they want to do with healing correctly, maybe it looks a little bit more like this. And I find this pretty fun, and maybe more people will find it fun as well. And so we'll have more overall healers playing the game, which is good for groups always, because healer is a bottleneck in WoW. I think tank is still more of a bottleneck, but healer is definitely a bottleneck too. So yeah, I mean, I think the healing is a lot of fun. The classes, but I haven't played Vigor as much, but I have played Sylvie quite a bit. And it's very intuitive and fun once you really start to get and understand how the builds work and the different ways to do it. And like Sylvie is a hot healer, and it takes a little bit to get to understand. It's like a combination of a druid and a shaman, because she has hots but also has totems. They're basically flowers. They're basically shaman totems. Like she has one hot that's like literally basically Cloudburst totem, but like better. And it takes a little getting used to. Once you get into the zone of that, it feels really, really good. And so I've been really enjoying the healing. So I would be A-okay with WoW not being exactly this, but being closer to this than it is right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. This is kind of the one thing that I have drawn issue with, though, is I'm happy that the healing is good. I do think that they've struck a pretty good balance with tanking as well. They actually just did or are doing an update here soon that's going to buff all tank threat by 20%, which is amazing. I wish WoW would do that.
They did. Did you see
tenfold.
On the beta? Did you see on the beta? Taunt now does 800% increased threat instead of 400. They doubled it. So
yeah, but like, what about just your abilities?
Look, man, you can't have everything. Okay.
Taunts one mob, Scott.
Look, just be a better tank. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I feel like they are nailing like the tank and healer stuff, which is good because like those are the things that people don't play as much, right? So like if you're going to slack anywhere, it's probably better to slack on the DPS classes. That being said, I do feel like the way in which you are progressing through the game, when you first start out as a DPS, you don't have any of your talents, you don't have any gear, and you're playing with one of your friends who's played like 5 dungeons, 6 dungeons more than you. Like not a ton more than you, but they've got their first set of like talents, maybe even their second row talents, and they've got some gear. Like the difference between you and them is just astronomical, and it feels awful. And I don't know how you fix it. I really don't, because I don't think that they should not reset talents every season. I think that's a good idea. I think resetting gear and talents is perfectly
I
fine.
think they have to. I don't know how the game works without doing that, because like the whole progression path system is built on that. So yeah, I don't know how they don't do that.
But the first 16 dungeons until you finish your like character's progression left side path, you are just getting outclassed by somebody who has. And maybe that's just okay. I mean, it's only 16 dungeons. And like Scott said, the majority of the time that you're going to be playing this game are going to be 10 to 15 minute dungeons. And so like, it's really not that big of a deal, but it just kind of feels bad initially. And I feel like that's the point in which you should be trying to hook people. So I feel like that could be a point of like lost player base,
Sure.
because they don't feel like they're doing enough. They don't feel like they're catching up enough. And it takes like, a good 5 to 10 dungeons before you get enough talent points to where like you're really competing and you've got gear and stuff like that. So not to say that they need to change anything specifically. I feel like that is potentially a lost point.
Yeah, I mean,
As far as like engagement.
It's kind of weird because like WoW, like if you did a dungeon at level 1 in World of Warcraft, you would probably be saying the same thing, right? It's like, this sucks. And so it's just weird that like this is a game where basically, since it's only dungeons, you boot up the game and the first thing you're doing is stepping into a dungeon, and you don't have it. You haven't unlocked any of your talents yet. You barely unlocked half of your skills. And so that's always going to feel a little bit weird. But yeah, I do appreciate that it is only 16 dungeons to move up that left path. It is pretty quick relatively. I think it was a really interesting choice to lock talents behind your progression amongst the leagues, right? Like a fairly large amount of your talents are locked behind that. And that's something that I was a little bit surprised about. I think it ultimately makes sense in a game like this, but like coming from WoW, it surprised me very much to like go into a progression path and just know that, well, it's not going to be until I'm near the end of this path that I have access to every single one of my talent points. That feels very weird when talent points in WoW are just given to you prior to the end game, where in Fellowship, the end game is the game, and so you will be earning those talents. So that just it takes some getting used to, but I was ultimately okay with it. But I was surprised initially by it.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not something that's ruining the game. I have a feeling that there isn't going to be that like hook, right, that gets people in, because you could just be out. Like if, for example, I go and get my friend who's never played the game before, and I get them to play with me, and I'm on my normal main DPS. Like in WoW, the same thing would happen where you would just eclipse somebody in who's significantly less item level than you and everything else like that. But in WoW, it feels like there's a lot more to do.
Yeah. The hook
And
of
so,
WoW
like,
is like, holy shit, this is a giant world.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not, I have these 6 dungeons to do and that's it. Yeah.
So it doesn't feel as bad when you're getting just absolutely demolished by somebody who's been playing it for months and months and months. So like, I think getting a new player in could be potentially hard. But again, this is complete speculation. I don't think that this is a bad thing that they need to fix now. In fact, I don't even think they need to fix it at all. It's just an observation I've had, and maybe it's something that they should keep on their radar. But outside of that, the other thing that I did want to say about DPS is The fact that they added a new DPS without any testing at all was very interesting to me, and I am all for it because it means that they are they're in the process of developing new shit all the time, obviously, because
Yeah.
this released without any beta testing whatsoever. And so that has me excited that there's going to be a lot more coming to this game, and a lot more coming to this game maybe quicker than I would anticipate it happening.
Yeah, I'm glad they listened to our podcast and added another DPS because we told them to. It was very nice of them to do that.
Yeah, well, they added. Honestly, the DPS that they added though is like right up my alley, so I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, they listened to our podcast and said, we got to add another DPS. Let's do one that Tevin really likes. And so
we need a bow guy.
Yeah, and they developed from the beginning to end the bow guy that quickly. It's pretty remarkable, actually.
Which I just gotta say, like, a lot of the classes in this game are kind of like mix and match of things in WoW. That guy is just straight up a marksman hunter. Like, there is no mixing and matching with it. Like, he is straight up just a marksmanship hunter. It's hilarious.
I really like that they changed the Sylvie Ironbark button that was just Ironbark, and it behaved exactly like Ironbark in WoW. I forgot what they changed it to, but it was really funny. It was like Iron Tree something and
Iron something ward.
Yeah. Only Sylvie still says Ironbark when you press the button. So they haven't changed that voice line yet.
But all right, well, Scott, I have a feeling you and I are going to have a lot more Fellowship to talk about here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if people like that. I guess audience, like, if you're just like, just let us know. Like, I'm sick of you talking about this fucking game. But like, Mythic Plus is obviously the big draw for World of Warcraft for us. So like, any game that is attempting to do Mythic Plus is always going to be something that we're going to be very interested in talking about. But maybe y'all are sick of it already. I don't know. I think
I have a feeling that when Midnight comes out, like, here's my hope, right? Here's my hope for Midnight is Midnight comes out and it's so ungodly good that we don't play Fellowship anymore.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, I've enjoyed this game and I'm going to keep playing it right now because there's really not too much to do in World of Warcraft. Like, we're going to do our crest grind. Maybe we'll get a 5 stack together and push some keys, but most of the people we play with aren't playing the game right now. So like, I'm going to keep playing this game for a while, but like, I'm gonna like WoW's gonna be my game still. Like, it's just like I still think Mythic Plus is a better system than this game. Like, I just do. Like, does it have its drawbacks? Sure, it does. I think World of Warcraft feels better to play. I like Mythic Plus better. There's a lot of great things about this game, and I really enjoy it. But I like WoW's my game. Mythic Plus is my system, and that will continue to be true unless something dramatic happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel the exact same way. Like I said, just the movement in WoW and the fighting in WoW alone, like, it is never going to be matched by anything and has never even been close to being matched by any other game, in my opinion. Like, the weight behind the animations, the responsiveness when you press your buttons, the movement in general, like, there's a lot of things in a lot of games where, like, you go to jump over them and like visually your character is like clearing it, but your hitbox is a little bit bigger, and so you're not jumping over it. And in WoW, yeah, sure, that still exists, but I feel like it doesn't happen frequently. And so there's just like, and that's such a nitpicky like, that feels so stupid to even be commenting on, but like, those things add up, and it's just like the polish and everything with WoW. And like I said, the weight of the animations, like when you play a Fury Warrior and you're just throwing your swords all over the place, like, you really feel that happening when you press your buttons.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it's not matched by any other game. Final Fantasy is like more of like, if you want to be flashy, you play that game, and there's amazing animations in Final Fantasy. So good and so bright and vibrant that if they're not yours, people turn them off. So it's just, I don't know. WoW has a special place in my heart when it comes to like the feel of the game.
I think there's also just like 20 years of nostalgia of the sounds and the feeling you're talking about, but also just like the sounds and just like all these things are so ingrained in us that like it's hard it's hard to move away from those. So yeah, I think that's just like unless like Midnight comes out and Mythic Plus is like they've completely ruined it in every way. It's hard for me to think that like this would ever be something that could take its place, exist alongside it. Sure, absolutely. At this point in the season, like as you said, I think a couple weeks ago, the smartest thing this company could do is time their fellowship seasons to hit mid stride in a WoW season, and just be like, oh, you bored of that season? Here, come do this. And it leads to this influx of people. Like they timed this early access perfectly. They should keep it up. They should time every one of their seasons perfectly to match in this, because I mean, it is unabashedly a game that wants to exist in the world of uh, World of Warcraft seasons. Like it is pulling WoW players in. It wants to pull WoW players in, and it should do that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. But Scott, I do think we need to save some things for next week. My question is exactly what you asked earlier. Are you guys enjoying us covering Fellowship? Again, like I know you guys come to us for WoW, and like there's a lull period that happens with every WoW season. There's a lull period that happens with every WoW expansion. And so obviously we're hitting one of those right now. Fellowship's a bright new thing that kind of like emulates a lot of the things in WoW. And so Scott and I are playing it and we cover it here. But if it's something you guys hate, you don't want us to talk about that anymore, obviously let us know in the comments. Like I said, it's very close, and it's something Scott and I are playing significantly. So figured we might as well at least educate people who maybe aren't playing or are playing. But yeah, let us know how you guys are feeling. That's kind of the question for the week. Hopefully an easy one for you guys to answer. But as always, you can contact us over at yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com. YouTube is at yellingintothevoidwow, and Twitter and Blue Sky are both at intothevoidwow.
And please, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so. Make sure you never miss an episode. We are on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, as Tevin mentioned, and everywhere else there are podcasts. I can make one promise to you folks right now. When the beta comes out, I'm going to be playing the absolute fucking shit out of that. And so we will have much to report from the world of beta. I'm looking forward to testing all of the shit. I am looking forward to living in a world without add-ons, where I feel like I can actually just log into the game and set up a UI and go. So I can't wait for that. And I've decided here's what I've decided. I'll say this and then we can end the episode. What I've decided is I'm just going to play the story on the beta. So I'm just going to like do all the campaign questing on the beta, because what happens is every time I go into the game on release with the intent of like really reading all the quest text and like exploring the story and really taking in the story and enjoying it. But like then release comes and I'm playing with all my friends that are rushing through all of it. And I just end up rushing through all of it as well because I want to stay matched with them. But if I do it on beta, then there's no rush, right? So that's what I've decided. That's what I'm going to do. So maybe I will have more to say about the story in this game than I did in the previous ones. So that's my promise to you folks.
That might be a good idea. I 100% echo what you said, though, with when beta comes out, I'm going to be playing the shit out of it, mainly because we don't have to deal with add-ons. I mean, Scott and I have said, I don't know how many times, that the whole reason like we get beta access and then we never fucking play is because half our add-ons don't work. And it's annoying to like, okay, well, my UI shell looks good, but half the things on it aren't working. So yeah, I am extremely excited to go through and do that. If it ends up being what I play with when the game actually releases, we'll see. But yeah, just the sheer fact that we can go in and we can have like a weak aura kind of thing. We can go in and we can have details. We can go in and we can have boss mods without any tinkering. Yeah, I mean, sign me the fuck up. We're going to play the shit out of beta. It's going to be great, and I'm very excited for it. So, all that being said, if you want to hear more about all of this, you want to hear beta when it comes out, and housing when we get early access to that here in just a few weeks, honestly, a little over a month now. Yeah, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting on YouTube and Spotify, because all of that will help bring more people in, help grow the community, and help letting Scott and I continue to do what we do here. So with that, guys, until next week, I'll just be over here yelling into the void.
Yelling into the fellow. Felling into the void?
Felling into the void.
Shipping into the fell. Something. Sure.